You're good.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead, we're going to talk about freaking radicals and exponents and all that good stuff. All right, so the first of all, we need to talk about this. X times x squared. And we know this because essentially what this does, this lets us know, here's our base. This is how many times Alright, so essentially here's my base, and this is saying how many times we're going to multiply my base. And if I really wanted to change this up, I could make this a n to say that this would be x times x times x times x until we got all the way to the n. Alright? But in our case, if I make this, let's say, a 4, it'd be x times x times x times x. Alright, so that's what that means. Now, x to the 4 times x cubed. Alright, so if we take this, essentially we have x times x times x times x times our other x's. Alright, so when we look at this, we say, well, how many x's do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4 from this, 1, 2, 3 from that. So altogether we have x to the 7th. So what this does, if we think about what's going on from this, we can come up with our rule. And our rule is simply a to the m times a to the n is equal to am plus n. In our case, notice my bases are the same. The bases have to be the same for this to work. Otherwise, it's not going to. So in our case, if we look at this example, my base is the x, so I put an x in there. My n is my 4, so I put a 4 in there. Next base, x. My 3 is going to be my n. So from here, x, 4 plus 3, is equal to x to the 7th. And notice that's exactly what I've got here. So essentially the reason why this works, we're essentially taking our same bases and we're putting them all the way out. Now this works because essentially it would be really stupid if you had x to the 142 times x to the 300. You're not going to write x 142 times. You're not going to write x 300 times and then count them all up. You know, that's going to waste your time. So what we do, we simply say this is 142 plus 300, which is x 244, just like that. So this would be my answer right here. Okay? So once again, same base. When we're multiplying same bases, we simply add their exponents up. Real easy. All right. Now, our next rule that we're going to talk about. Well, if we know x squared is x times x, and x cubed is x times x times x, right? Okay, well, if we got x squared cubed, from our exponent rule, we know that all this is we're doing x squared 3 times. X squared times x squared times x squared. And from our last rule, we know when we have same bases, we add up our exponents. So this becomes x2 plus 2 plus 2, which is our x to the 6th. This is one way to do it. However, The rule for this, if we look at this, is simply this. A to the m to the n is going to be a m times n. Notice, essentially, this is 2 times plus 2 plus 2. So we're having 3 sets of 2, and that's what multiplication is, right? Fast addition. So we're going to say x to the 2 cubed. Notice my m is my 2, my n is my 3, is going to be x 2 times 3, which is x to the 6. Notice we've got the same answer that way. All right? So we can take our fundamental operation and we can recognize that our rule is simply, from this, our rule is we're going to take our sets here, we're going to multiply them up. So we got, 3 sets of 2. Right? X to the 6. So that's how we work this rule right here. Let's make this xy cubed. Xy cubed. Well, that means x times y times x times y times x times y. And we know that if we take same bases, I have same bases here. Multiplication is commutative, so that means it doesn't matter what order you have. So this is basically x times x times x times y times y times y. Just like that. Going back to what we know from our addition. This becomes x to the 1 times x to the 1 times x to the 1, y to the 1, y to the 1, y to the 1. We have same basis here, so we're going to add our exponents. X to the 1 plus 1 plus 1 times y to the 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is x cubed, y cubed. Right? This is an ugly way to do it, but this is fundamentally where it comes from. But we have a rule, and basically our rule is AB to the m is equal to A to the m, B to the m. So if we look at that, my A would be my x, my B would be my y, and my m would be my 3. So I know that essentially this 3 is going to distribute to both of these, which is essentially x cubed, y cubed, right? And if you really wanted to think about this, we could take it back to our other rule to say a to the m n is a m times n. Well, notice x, y to the 3 is equal to x to the 1, y to the 1, 3, which would be x to the 3 times y to the 3. Here's our 1s. So x cubed, y cubed. So either way you like it. But essentially all we're going to do is we're just going to distribute that exponent to each of our bases. Alright? Okay, let's move on. Alright, a to the m, b to the n. Well, if I think about that, x over y cubed is equal to x over y times x over y times x over y. So this is 3 x's, x cubed, y times y times y to the 3, just like that, right? So, our rule for this is essentially a over b to the n. This n is going to distribute over to be a to the n over b to the n. So our rule, once again, applied. Just like that. The 3 is going to go with the x, and the 3 goes to the y as well. Alright? Because notice this is just multiplying this out. Alright? Alright, we got another rule. There's a couple ways to think about this rule. And I'm going to go ahead and show you, let me back this up a little bit. Matter of fact, let me give you an example of this last one. Let's put up together what we know. Z squared y cubed times z xz over squared. Alright, so we've got this. We're going to wrap all this together. So I know that my 3 is going to distribute over to both of these, so this is going to become z to the 2 times 3, y to the 1 times 3, times x to the 1 times 2, z to the 1 times 2, x 1 times 3 over q 1 times 3. So from here I got z to the 6, y cubed, times x squared, z squared, x cubed over q cubed. Right? After this, I'm going to look for my common bases. I got x squared and x cubed. This becomes x squared, x cubed, y cubed, z squared, z6, all over q cubed, which is going to give us our 2 plus 3, y squared, or excuse me, cubed, z squared plus 6, q cubed, which is going to give us x to the 5, y3, z8 over q cubed.
That was a 9.
What's that? This? No, that's my cube. Cube. Alright? Cube. Okay, with that said, do check your book, check your homeworks, and make sure that works out all right for you. And I guess I'll just stand here for a second while I wait for the camera to turn off. Perhaps I'll dance.
You want to hear a joke?
You got a joke?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, knock.
Who's there?
Shelby.
Shelby who?
She'll be coming around the mountain when she comes.
Yay!